Hey, everybody, welcome to the Tech Founders Show, where we have outstanding conversations with founders who are leading the way and being agents of change and doing disruptive, exciting, innovative things in the tech landscape. So today I'm excited to talk to Dave Schatz. He is the co-founder of Circles for Zoom. And Circles for Zoom is pretty cool. I think most people are going to find this really interesting, but it's a new way to experience Zoom that gets out of your way so you can take notes, multitask, and get your desktop back. So with that, let me pull Dave on the screen here. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Hey, Tony, how's it going?
Very good. Thank you for joining. We're excited to talk here today. Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about Circles for Zoom? I think, what's cool about it, and this probably we'll talk about, how you've, launched the product and grown the product, but intuitively, it makes a lot of sense. Like it's easy to comprehend. So just tell us a little bit about the product and we'll go from there.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks. And thanks for having me, by the way. So Circles for Zoom, we're a Zoom alternative. We connect to meetings in the Zoom network. And essentially our goal is to enhance the meeting experience, enhance workplace collaboration. And, the primary problem that we're solving is giving people their desktop back while they're on these Zoom calls. Zoom, as everybody knows, we've all been stuck on Zoom for the last year and change, right?
Yeah.
It's this huge window, takes up your entire screen. If you're trying to do anything else while you're on a Zoom call, it's pretty complicated or cumbersome. Like you're resizing the Zoom window to resize a notes window, or trying to position things just so you can be productive again.
Yeah.
And we try and do is get Zoom out of your way, make your meeting feel more like a part of the OS. So we turn all participants to little circles at the top of your screen, or you can position them wherever you want. So you can have your desktop space back, which is great for working sessions or collaboration or multitasking when you're on calls.
That's awesome. So where did the idea for it come from?
Yeah, my co-founder and I have always been interested in the workplace collaboration space, and our previous company originally started in the workplace collaboration space, and then after a series of pivots, moved into a sales-focused SaaS business. But as the pandemic struck and we were all forced to go remote, we found ourselves on Zoom more and more. And as we were trying to do working sessions like we normally would, we found it to be pretty difficult with Zoom taking up the entire screen. So we kind of prototyped a little mini version of Circles for Zoom, just something to get it out of our way, and started using it a bunch, started talking to our friends about it, put in some friends' hands. They started using it. Some demand was starting to build up. We put a landing page together just to see what kind of demand there would be. Yeah. And signups started flowing in, and we thought, hey, maybe this is something that we should put some more cycles into and explore a bit deeper.
I love it.
That's kind of the genesis.
Yeah, so typically I was going to ask about MVP, and that's typically something people struggle with, right? Like everyone wants to add, a few more features, and they want it to be perfect before they get it out there. But I love you said, you just threw a landing page up, wanted to see, test the waters and see what happens. So it sounds like you guys were pretty bold about just putting it out there.
Yeah, I think so. It's something that we've learned in time. So the two of us are engineers. And I think one big problem that often, we face, and I think many engineers fall victim to, is the desire to over-engineer or build too much up front and, keep building and try and release something great. But I think we just wanted something that worked for us just to get out of our way, because we were trying to solve our own problem. And so we slapped something together, something pretty basic, minimal features, just, getting Zoom out of the way. And that worked for us. And as we started using it, we started to feel what other pain points we would need. As we had more users coming on, we'd start to get more feedback. One thing that we've been really focusing on is building our community of users and keeping a really tight feedback loop with the folks that are using it. And that's really helped us get a sense for what's important. Because right now, our team is down to just Tim and myself. And so the types of meetings that we have are very different than the types of meetings some other people have. And so, some folks are on, 100, 150 person meetings. Some people are on 10, 15 person calls. And there are different types of calls too. Some are working sessions, some are webinars, some are, one-on-one syncs. it all depends. And so there's no way that we'd be able to predict all of the use cases.
Yeah.
And so, we're not going to, delude ourselves into thinking that we have all the answers. So we have to rely on, customer feedback, user feedback sessions, and understanding what people need out of the product. And then the other thing is I think it's a lot easier when you release something basic, because it's less confusing of a product. As soon as you add more features, you have to figure out how to make those features intuitive. And another thing that we've learned is that everyone has, seems like common sense, but everyone's got their own workflow. And when you see that put in practice, as people use your application, everyone tries to use it a different way. And so what might be intuitive to one person isn't to another. And what you think might be getting out of someone's way might be getting in the way of another person. So introducing all of these different ways of flexibility within the product while still trying to keep it easy to use has been a challenge for us. But it's exciting, and it's a fun experience.
Yeah, that's super cool to hear, kind of what you guys have done. I want to get back at some point to talk about that user feedback, because I think that's super important, and I think there's a lot to learn there. But I would like to hear first about, you having that engineering background, that software engineering background, and knowing that at times you need to take that hat off and look at business in different ways. How has that been for you, and how for you and your co-founder, how do you guys balance? You said you guys both have the technical background, correct?
Right. Yeah, correct.
So how do you kind of, as a team, how do you guys make sure that you're stepping back and looking at things from, the basic, user perspective? And like you said, everyone's going to use things differently, and you got to account for all of that. So I would just love to hear a little bit about how you guys do planning, how you look at the product, how to make improvements, and all of that.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's a great question. So yeah, spot on. As engineers, all we want to do is build all the time. So it's a lot to try and force ourselves, and we constantly have to remind ourselves and force ourselves to pull out of that engineering mindset, to take a step back and take a look, like you were saying. Fortunately, I think we have very complementary skill sets, and given that Tim and I have been working together for a long time, our communication is really great. And so yeah, Tim leads engineering. Tim leads our engineering charge, and he leads our design. He's got a really great sense for product, a really great eye for design. So Tim leads both of those. These days, I support on engineering and mostly lead our growth efforts. And it's kind of a back and forth. So it depends on the needs and, where the product's at. So we'll come up with milestones and we'll push ourselves really hard. So those could be growth numbers, retention numbers, or certain product goals. So for example, if there's a feature of Zoom that Circles needs to support that we aren't currently supporting, and it's going to require a ton of time and engineering effort to get done, we'll break that work up and we'll split it that way. In terms of growth, if there are marketing efforts or community building or outreach, I'll devote a lot of my time to that. But when it comes to in-product growth features, so product-led growth stuff, those are conversations, idea sessions, brainstorm sessions where we'll come up with ways that we think we can lightly encourage folks to do things in the app that would encourage growth or encourage referrals or invites. And those end up being product features that we split up. But the beginning of the week, we'll set goals for ourselves. For the end of the week, we have quarterly goals, we have monthly goals, and then we'll constantly review those and just check in to make sure that priorities haven't changed. If they have, how are we dividing and conquering that work?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like as you guys divide up, areas of the business that you're responsible for, it sounds like you're the one that has stepped a little bit more outside of your comfort zone, at least from that, software engineer perspective. How has that been for you? What is that? Yeah. Has it been challenging? Have you enjoyed it? What has that been like, looking more on the, growth side of things, marketing and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it. It's definitely a personal growth experience for sure. It definitely is stepping outside of my comfort zone. I'm most comfortable when I'm, in my IDE writing code, but it has been fun. I think, a lot of my past experience has helped me out as I got to this point. So a was at Facebook for a number of years, and while I was there, I worked closely with folks in the partnerships teams and the sales teams, and learned a ton just being around them and sitting in some meetings with them from the engineering side, at least. And that's also given me a great network of folks to reach out to for support. And so, when it comes to sales, so I think I mentioned Tim and I had started a previous company together that had turned into a SaaS business. And again, being two engineers, we needed to find a way to grow and sell the product. And, I didn't know anything about sales. So I leaned pretty heavily on my network, my past colleagues, friends of mine, to build those skills. And I think a lot of that has prepared me for this, even though it's a very different approach. This isn't like a sales-led approach, but that definitely got me out of the comfort zone. And now it's exciting. It's fun. I think moving metrics is fun. Seeing the results of, growth experiments. Not all of them work. Many of them don't, but the ones that do, as I mean, you're a growth expert. You know way more about this than I do. So
But I totally agree. It's exciting. Like, it's super fun when you find something that works. It's like, it's so exciting, but you got to do a lot of those tests to find that one, right? And that's, you have to for that. Yeah. So that's interesting. We see a lot of people with, we work with a lot of clients and talk to a lot of folks that, with a tech background and a tech business, and that's kind of the whole team. Is everyone is a team of engineers. And so sometimes that's, how the growth really needs to happen when you step away from the product, look at what, your target audience wants, needs, how they need that articulated, so on and so forth. And that can be challenging. So that's cool to hear that, in your past role. So this isn't your first rodeo as far as being a founder, right?
Yeah, still making mistakes. I think you always make mistakes, but learned a ton, while building the last one, and trying to apply a lot of those learnings now. But, you were mentioning, as we talk about growth, I think another thing that we focus on too is just this oscillation between product and growth, and like retention and growth. And so there's a lot that you can do to try and force growth. But if you're not building a great product experience, then you're building a product that's just designed to churn. And so one thing that we try to balance a lot is, trying as best we can to ensure that A, we have good retention, B, we have a product that delivers true value, and then trying to grow on top of that. Early on, the other tough thing about our business, if I'm rambling too much, please reel me in or point me in a direction. But one of the interesting things, so coming from Facebook, Tim came from Amazon. We both have this desire to keep shipping and release new features and keep pushing and talking to customers, trying to deliver on some of their requests as soon as possible, just to deliver, love to our customers and let them know that we listen to them. One of the challenges with what we're doing now is that meeting software is really critical to day-to-day in a business. Yeah. And if we push an unstable build, or if your meeting crashes, if Circles crashes during your meeting, that's not something that people are willing to forgive, especially not all that easily. And it's embarrassing for a user if you leave a meeting, or you freeze on a meeting, or the software glitches up. And so there were a few times where we pushed some unstable builds, caused a lot of problems for us, caused a lot of problems for some of our users. We feel terrible about it when that happens. We've updated our QA process to anything that's in meeting related goes through heavy QA. Other ancillary features, I think we can be a little bit more loose with, but it's really taught us, the importance of, how careful we have to be with some of these things, and a lot of empathy for people. Unfortunately, through this tight feedback loop that we've had with customers, we've been able to, win some folks back, and they've been able to give us another chance. But yeah, it's interesting finding where those levers are in terms of where you can move fast and where you need to optimize for, true stability. And another challenge that we have too is just that, we have some of these platform dependencies. So we're built on top of the Zoom SDK, which is what gives us access to the Zoom network. And if there are issues with that Zoom SDK, no software is perfect. One of the challenges is that if there's a bug in their software, it reflects as if it's a bug in our software, and folks think that we've released a buggy product. And so requires even more testing and even more process just to make sure that we do deliver that good experience.
So just to clarify, the Zoom network, that is when there's other kind of brands that are really running the Zoom platform. Is that correct?
When I say the Zoom network, I mean, there are a few different popular meeting conference networks. So there's like the Zoom network, the Google Meet network, Microsoft Teams, Skype for Business. We only support the Zoom network right now. We're exploring what the engineering effort would be to support something like Google Meet or Microsoft Teams. One of the ideas being, if you like the Circles experience in your meetings, and you happen to have a meeting on Google Meet, why not be able to use this same interface and the same experience in any meeting that you have? Why does it just have to be Zoom? Yeah. Right now, we're limited by engineering resources, but
sure, yeah. That's great. So is that part of your growth plan? The roadmap down the road?
Long term, I think so. There are a few different directions we can go, and I think it's good that we're considering a bunch of different options. I'm happy to share what some of those are, but I think the important thing will be listening to our customers and seeing where that takes us. And again, I think one of the hardest things for any startup is finding product market fit. And I think we're very critical on ourselves because we don't want to assume we have product market fit before we do. That's one of the mistakes we made with our last company. If it's okay to share.
Absolutely.
Story, but yeah, with our last company, we set out to build a mobile workplace communication tool. We raised money, and I think at that point we had some companies beta testing our product. We just raised money, and we had assumed that meant product market fit. Smart folks invested a decent amount of money into us. We have beta customers using it. We used it internally, and we were like, wow, we're off to the races. Let's just iterate on product.
Yeah.
But that's just not the case. And we ultimately had to pivot a few times before we found a product that delivered on market needs. And so here we're extra critical with ourselves, and and just trying to make sure that with everything we do, we're delivering real value to our users.
Oh, that's great. So to talk a little bit about that user, I'm just curious what the process is and how do you communicate and engage with those users to learn about, their concerns, challenges, things they like. Is that a formal process, or how do you guys go through and document that? And then after you collect that feedback, how do you guys work to prioritize as far as what you're going to actually, work on in upcoming releases? I'd love to hear just kind of what that iteration looks like.
Well, yeah, those are great questions. So it started pretty informally, and I think we've gotten some structure down for it now. But what we'll do is we're very active in responding to customer support emails. So users will email us, reach out in different means. We have a Facebook community in there. Fortunately, folks are helping each other as well, so it's less of a burden on us as much now. But we're constantly in there helping. And as we get emails and as we work with folks, we always insert a little Calendly link at the bottom, and we ask if they're willing to spend 15 minutes with us. We're hopeful that we're delivering enough value for them, and maybe they have enough ideas or feedback, especially when people send really critical feedback or complaints or running into issues with the software. We really try and get on a call with them. So anytime we speak to anybody over email, we always try and push for, hey, are you open to a 15-minute phone call with us or a 15-minute Zoom call with us, just so we can learn more about your experience, learn how you use the product, learn a bit more about what your use case is and what we can do to better support you. And oftentimes folks are willing. I mean, 15 minutes is a short commitment. We're really respectful of folks' time, so we try and keep it really tight. Yeah. More in there. The conversation, the only guiding questions that we ask are, to share their experience, share a bit more about the types of meetings that they're in, and then it kind of meanders from there, depending on the feedback that they share. And we've learned some really great things, and we've learned about some issues with our product from flows that we just don't experience ourselves. And when it comes to how frequently we ask, so anytime we send emails out, anytime there's a major update, we'll send a major update email, and at the bottom we're constantly requesting time with folks. And fortunately, folks are giving it to us, and we always want to honor the folks that spend time with us by posting on our social channels, so LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, thanking them publicly. And our goals out of these are A, to improve the product and understand what we can be doing better, B, to find at least one small feature that was requested in that we could deliver right away, just to really deliver love to folks that chat with us, and then try and pull out themes across these conversations. So folks will ask for things, and it's important to know what they're asking, but it's even more important to know why they're asking for certain things, because they only know how to ask for things in context of what they've seen so far, and they're not oftentimes able to envision where the product could go or what's possible, or what else we could do. And as we hear feedback from folks, we try and take a step back and have conversations afterwards, trying to understand what is it that they're trying to do with that feature request. And sometimes what they requested is absolutely the way that we should do it. Other times it's very directional feedback, and very helpful in guiding us towards the direction that will not only solve their problem, but solve other problems that we've heard too. And so in terms of prioritization, we prioritize bugs at the top. Anything that's causing issues, is a high priority. We have these longer term goals that are guided by these conversations based on things that the product needs to deliver on that it's currently not. And then where we want to take the product. I think a lot of our time was spent catching up to Zoom, because in order to deliver a Zoom client, you got to offer the same features. But beyond that, our goal is really to deliver. We want to give you superpowers in your Zoom meetings. We want to give you the ability to do all these things in the most convenient way for you. Zoom, by necessity, has to be this one-size-fits-all tool. It has to work for grandparents. It has to work for business folks. It has to work for kids in school. It has to work for teachers. Like, they need to define their interface in a certain way that's consistent and makes sense across all users. We have the opportunity to build a tool for power users, and I think everybody now, whether they believe it or not, is probably a power user of Zoom. And if we identify, some common workflows that we think we can really deliver value on, and understand what some of the, common activities are, or common frustrations are, or common actions are, maybe there are ways that we can make that easier, make that quicker with like 1 click or 2 clicks, or, a keyboard shortcut, or, what can we do to make that experience seamless and out of your way? Anyway, I'm probably rambling here. So.
No, it's fantastic. And I really like your approach to just interacting with your users. Getting a little bit of feedback here. But I think it's great that I love what you said there, that when you're talking to users, obviously you're collecting, information, and some are themes that you're seeing come up, across many users, different groups. But I love how you said you're also looking, to deliver a little something, so that people could, I would feel really good if I, gave some feedback about, I'm using your software, and I came up with a little suggestion, and then I see that down the road. I think that's really cool, and that shows that.
Sorry about that. I think my internet may have.
No problem. Can you see and hear me?
Yeah, can you see and hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
But I love that kind of commitment and focus to the user, their voice, kind of really trying to get the platform to, where it needs to be for them. And then, as you said, in a lot of cases, you're going to understand. You're trying to understand what they're trying to accomplish, and there might be a better way. And that's where you, as the software engineers, can come in and figure that out. But that's great. I think something I would love to hear a little more about is, it sounds like you have, that user network. I think you said it was a Facebook group that people are on and interacting. I love that. And I think that's such a cool, that is so valuable to have something like that. So I would ask, how did you grow that group to get, the goal is to get the power users talking, so they're sharing and helping others out, like you said, and they become the evangelists. They have a purpose in that group because they're becoming a subject matter expert. So people are, talking to them, asking them. They're supporting your product and your model. So how did you grow that to get people active, to get people talking and sharing and to that point?
Yeah, this is something that we put together, I forget when we started, maybe about 6 months ago. So it wasn't something that we thought about from the beginning. It came out of, we would get a ton of emails. I mean, when you get a ton of emails asking for the same thing or asking questions about the same thing, our mentality was, okay, let's add that to our FAQ, but nobody reads the FAQ. But it's good to add that anyway. And then we thought, well, and then obviously improve that in the product. But if there are many people asking the same question, maybe they'd benefit from, if there's a better way for us to deliver that information for everybody to see it, or that was kind of the impetus behind why we decided to create a group or create a community. Also, as engineers, we participate in all these communities. So whether it's the Zoom Developer Forum or something like Stack Overflow or other communities that we're a part of, we find so much value in those. Yeah. And there are other software tools that we participate in communities for. And as engineers, the first thing we thought of was, all right, let's spin up some forum software and put it all together. But you really need to prioritize your time, and you need to understand where you're spending time, and how much value are we going to get from using our own custom forum versus using an existing platform. So then the question was, what platform do we think most people will be on? That came down to either Reddit or Facebook, and we thought Facebook might have more people and might be easier to use. So we started this Facebook group, and then similar to our request for time for folks, at the bottom of our emails, we'll also say, hey, heads up, in case you don't know about it, we have this Facebook group. Check it out. There are a lot of questions being asked in there. There's a lot of support. Inside the product, we have a link to the Facebook community, so people find it that way. And inside each of our release emails, we always link to the Facebook community. So it's a slow process. It's not. We don't have all that many folks in there right now, but the folks that are in there are engaged, and they're helping each other out, and it's growing. And so we hope that channel continues to grow, because we think that's a really efficient way for folks to learn from each other. And we're learning a lot. I mean, being engineers, we're not growth experts. We're trying to gain the skills that you have, Tony. So this is just one thing we're learning how to do.
Yeah, no, that's cool. But it sounds like you guys are, taking what you learn and moving forward with it, which is that's awesome. I would love to hear a little bit just with your backgrounds. With, I think you said, Tim having worked at Amazon, you having worked at Facebook. I think that was something I wanted to ask. Just looking through your LinkedIn profile and seeing a little bit of your work history. What would you guys say you guys have? I'm sure there's a ton of things you learned from working in those organizations. Are there any things that you really pulled from them that said, when I was at Facebook, this is how we handled this, and man, we need to be doing that? Or here's something I learned that didn't work, and let's make sure I would love to hear just what you learned, what your takeaways. I think the obvious thing is you probably both have an awesome network of really talented people, which is fantastic that you can tap into. But from an organizational standpoint, the way those companies were run, I would love to hear just a little bit of kind of what you've taken and tried to, use what you've learned.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel very fortunate. I think we both do, that we had the opportunity to work at those organizations, especially, at the times that we did. Especially at Facebook is a very transformative time for the company. And so, I don't know if my camera is, my connection. I feel like my connection's getting weak again. I apologize.
No, you're okay.
Okay. So, I learned a ton at Facebook, both from the incredible engineers that I worked with, and I leveled up a ton in that sense. And then also just the methodologies and the practices like in place at Facebook. And so, there are a lot of core mantras within Facebook that I still hold dear today and have shaped me a lot as an engineer. So, one of the core ones is done is better than perfect. Facebook used to always say done is better than perfect. Just ship something and then we can iterate on it, but we can't start learning until we do. One fun, story about this too is, well, I'll share a bit more and then I can share some stories, but done is better than perfect is one that we live by, and it kind of forces us to keep shipping. The Facebook mantra of, I don't know if they still say it, but move fast and break things. The idea behind it isn't to break things, but it's move fast enough so that, if you're not moving fast enough that you might break something, then you're not shipping fast enough and you're not learning fast enough. The more you ship, the more you learn. And so the idea behind that is ship fast. And if you break something, you can always fix it, but move fast. And so depending on the organization, certain organizations within Facebook have a lot more focus on stability. Certain, organizations within Facebook can be a little bit more loose. We find that with us, the in-meeting part of our product versus the other part. So, that kind of works for us too. Another thing I loved about Facebook was, I think at the time the mantra was code wins arguments. It may have shifted to data wins arguments, but that's something that we value as well. And I think we're very data driven and data oriented. And another thing that I really loved was inside Facebook, we used to always say nothing is somebody else's problem. So if you see an issue or if you find a bug, even if it's in a part of a code base that your team doesn't work on, submit a diff, push a fix, try and fix it. It's you found it, fix it. Nothing is somebody else's problem. It goes across everything, not just engineering, but it just builds this supportive culture within the company. And so I learned a ton from that. A couple stories that I think reflect some of this. Within Facebook, on Facebook.com, the website, when we were launching chat, there was this internal debate between should it be on the right side or the left side? Where would people want chat to be? Would folks want to see it on one side or the other? Where would they naturally look? Yeah. And this conversation went on for longer than it needed to until a product manager was like, what are we doing? Let's just A/B test this. And that's the only way we're going to find out. We can sit in a room all day and bicker back and forth based on what we think, but we'll never know. The data will tell us. And, it's that kind of attitude that we try and run with. I mean, we did it at Tape and now at Circles, which is, we're not, I don't think anybody is capable of predicting what the right answer is to everything. And a lot of these things, and I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this a ton in growth. I mean, with growth, you can have a great idea for a growth experiment and it may fall flat on its face. And then you might have this, this other idea. You'll come up with a ton of ideas and some of the ones that you think will really work out won't. Yeah. Some of the ones that you never thought would work do, show results. And then some of the ones that you thought would work really do work. But the only way to do this is to test, and they all take time. But it's anyway. So I don't know if that's helpful, but so aside from the operational side and some of those mantras, from the engineering side, I think we both leveled up a ton as engineers through that experience. Just scaling software, scaling these code bases, supporting, building services that support tons of traffic and scale, and engineering practices that are done the right way. Since then, moving into startups, I think at a startup it takes the right set of trade-offs, and I think you have to know when to make those trade-offs. And so as engineers, we always want to engineer the perfect thing that scales the right way, and that takes so much time. But we need to make the right trade-offs in terms of we can cut some corners here, knowing that we're cutting some corners, and we can come back to those in the future. But in order to ship something faster or to get to market faster, because the worst thing in the world would be to spend 2 weeks building something that we release and doesn't get used or is built the wrong way, and then we have to, rebuild it. So I think startups are an interesting exercise in making those trade-offs in everything, not just engineering, but all of the trade-offs you have to make as a startup, because you're so limited on resources and time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I'm rambling a ton here. So hopefully some of this is on point to what you're asking me and relevant.
No, a lot of really good stuff. I mean, you shared a ton of really valuable things. I do love that. I wrote it down as, nothing is somebody else's problem. That's fantastic. And I think, to your point, that's something that's like a culture builder. Because if you can get people that start to see the world like that and see, it's not, oh, well, that's not my problem, right? I mean, that's the worst mentality to have. But I love that. It's, Andy and I, we talk a lot about, core values. And in our company, in Civia, that was something that attracted me to join, was that, Andy has these core values, think smart, act bold, always innovate, open yourself, be passionate. And so when I heard those, I'm like, so that's what you guys are really about. That resonated. So I love hearing that type of thing. And I mean, that's something that opens people's eyes, and you're saying, oh, this is the mentality that we need to have, moving forward. Just cool. So what I've gathered from you, Dave, is so far, it's like a lot of learning lessons. And I think that they're super valuable, because those, what is a failure, in your last endeavor is now something you're paying close attention to, that's helping you head in the right direction. So that's pretty cool. Just to shift gears a little bit, it sounds like at your last company that you founded, you guys raised some funds.
Yeah.
What about with Circles? Are you guys bootstrapping now? Or are you raising funds? Where are things at, and what does that all look like?
Yeah. So right now, so we were fortunate enough to exit Tape. So with the proceeds from that, we're moving forward on Circles. But the way we think about fundraising is, fortunately, we have the runway right now to continue moving forward. We want to get the product into a stronger position where we have more repeatable growth. I think we've gotten into a place where the product is delivering true value. We have really strong retention numbers. I think now we just want to focus a bit more on growth. And, there are a few other things that we want to do, but we're thinking about fundraising. But we want to do it when it makes sense for the company, when we'll be able to use that money to fuel growth, and we have a strong plan for how we'll use that money. And I think we've been so in the weeds with building the product and trying to get to this point that we haven't really spent the requisite time to plan that out and think about how we would use those funds if we were to raise them. And so that's probably something we'll start thinking about, but it's not our top priority at the moment.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a very, smart and responsible approach to that. Sometimes you hear from founders who just they think that's going to just solve all their problems if they just got some funding. But, you're looking at it, realizing that you have to have it to a certain point, and, you have to grow this product in a way that it makes sense. And so you got to be built from a strong foundation before you decide to scale it out and all that. So that's cool. What do you think what are some of the things that you guys will be looking for, indicators that'll tell you the time is right to say, we need to scale, let's, figure out funding and pursue it? What do you think some of those triggers are, just, for those watching?
Yeah, it's a good question. Just to take a step back, looking at the space that we're playing in, I think there are a couple factors given the space that we're playing in that also affect that decision process. And so in that, I think we're in this unique time where, because of the pandemic, most businesses have been forced to go remote. And in doing so, I don't think we don't believe that there are the right tools out there to help many of these companies be successful as remote companies. I think there are remote first companies like Zapier or Automatic that started remote and built processes and have over communication as one of their core values and know how to be remote. And then there are companies that started co-located that have become remote, and they had ways of doing things that were centered around being together in an office that just don't work when they're remote, and they don't have the same philosophy and the same processes as these remote first companies do. So those same tools don't quite work. And then there's a lot that gets lost when you move from co-located to distributed, which is, like a lot of these spontaneous conversations that would happen amongst coworkers, I'd be in an office, and at the desk, 2 desks away from me, there could be a conversation starting up about, some part of the code base and questions that 2 engineers are asking each other. And I may have experience in that, so I might chime in. And then through that conversation, we all identify like a new paradigm or a new feature or a new bug fix or a new something. And there's so much value in these spontaneous conversations that happen that you just can't have. And if that's the way that you're used to working, then, and so we believe that there's a huge opportunity for us or someone else to develop those tools and build the tools that will help companies in the future, even if there is this hybrid, remote, and co-located space. You'll need the tools to support these people. And so we're in this really unique position. Because of that, I think we need to move fast. There's a limited amount of time before there's a lot of competition in our space. There's a limited amount of time because of A, the competition, and B, folks will figure out what works for them. And if we don't move fast enough, we won't even have a seat at the table, offering an option for them to try. So those factor into our decision around when does it make sense to raise money. Additionally, while we don't have many direct competitors, there are a few that I think are pretty close, but there are many people playing in this space, and a lot of folks are raising a lot of money in this space. And so another thing to think about is, there's the old saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, and so if these competitors can outspend or can build up the resources, whether that's engineering talent or marketing or whatever else, to outcompete us in that sense, then we might lose out just from that alone. And so in order to stay competitive, we may have to raise. But like I said before, we have to make sure the product is right. We have to make sure that we're confident in the direction that we're moving before we can confidently go out and fundraise. I mean, putting my investor hat on, I'd want the answers to those questions before I, invest some money into somebody. And we also want to be as confident as we can be going into this, that, we have a plan and we know how we'll win, and we know how we will change the way that, folks collaborate in the workplace. Again, I feel like it's a bit of a ramble. Hopefully some of that is valuable, but there's a lot that goes into it. And so as we come up with that plan, which is something that we're thinking of, what are some of the milestones we want to set for ourselves? What would it take for us to get there? As we plan that out, what would it take if it's just the 2 of us? What would it take if we add some more engineers? What would it take if we add engineers and marketing folks? Who would we need on that team? And trying not to overhire. I think that's another thing that, we have good learnings and experience from is, we want to stay lean as we can for as long as we can, and always stay lean, and only hire when it's necessary. And, there's no point in growing too fast, but you grow as it's necessary is kind of our attitude.
Yeah. No, this is all, you're giving a lot of really valuable perspective of the different things that you're thinking through. So you might feel like some of that is rambling, but the way I hear it is there's a lot of things to consider kind of looking at all this. I think that's really valuable, I'm sure, for a lot of people that are watching. I would like to ask just about the point of what you guys are doing. It's so timely and relevant right now with businesses forced remote, many of them not going to be going back. It's an interesting thing that you mentioned, talking about, some companies were remote first. For them, this hasn't been a big deal. This is just kind of business as usual. That, that is not necessarily the majority or the norm. A lot of the companies were, people were in person, like you said. People can chime in on conversations and things that it's totally different now. Is that part of your focus? Has it been to this point, or do you think that is an area that you guys will kind of go to market with that in mind, looking at companies that, were traditional people in an office, and now they're trying to figure out the whole being really effective remotely? Is that something that you guys have, put intention on?
Yeah, absolutely. We think about that a lot. We think about, the various ways that folks interact today. And our product right now is primarily video based. But video isn't perfect for everything, and it's not necessary for everything. And as we're seeing, Zoom fatigue is a real thing. Staying on Zoom calls is energy draining, especially if you're going back to back. And so we're not trying to say that the perspective that we take as a company isn't that Zoom meetings are the way that you should handle every meeting moving forward. Oh no, is it my internet again? Oh, are we here? Sorry, I'm worried. I think I have a bad connection today. I apologize. Even though Zoom meetings are our primary focus today, we don't believe that they're the correct solution for everything. Some meetings, you don't need a meeting for everything. I think one of the benefits of Circles, and one of the things that we're trying to do is today, especially for these teams that were co-located or now remote, a scheduled Zoom meeting is so structured. It feels so structured and heavyweight. It feels so heavy. It's someone puts it on your calendar. Now we have this structured 30-minute meeting and we need to make the most of it. And it's kind of draining. We're paying close attention and we feel like we need to use that entire time. And it's not the same as if I were to walk up to your desk, Tony, and very quickly be like, hey, had a quick question about something. We could avoid a meeting altogether. And I think, just like in the office, there are a lot of meetings that could be avoided by a simple, quick conversation or some Slack messages back and forth. I think the same can be done remote. I think, text and Slack can get a lot done. I think audio calls are great. I think especially with the pandemic, get out of your house, get out of your apartment, go for a walk and take a call. I think that's really healthy. And what we try and do with Circles is it feels lighter weight. So you see these small circles on your screen, you could resize them, do whatever you want, but the point is you can pop in and out of these things really easily. So it doesn't have to feel like this really heavy meeting that's scheduled and structured. And so that's one thing. Another thing that we've been seeing that's really interesting is we've been seeing some teams and, hearing from folks that they're staying in Circles meetings throughout the day. And so someone will spin up a Circles meeting, their whole team will jump in, they'll stay muted, and they'll just see each other across the top of their screen really small. And they'll feel connected. It's that personal connection with other folks in the office. When they have a question, they'll unmute and they'll be like, hey, if anyone's there, just a quick question. And then, maybe that'll start a little conversation amongst all of them. And then they'll mute again and they'll just leave it up. And it builds that human connection that they felt when they were in the office. And I think there's something to that too. And that's something that as we hear teams share that with us, we always try and pull the thread on that and, double click on it and try and understand that behavior a bit more and explore that more. Because, I don't have all the answers, but it's interesting being in this space and seeing how the product gets used, seeing how different teams are interacting, seeing the different ways that they're trying to be productive with each other. So that's been exciting for us. And it gives us a lot of hope that there's some real value we can deliver and some really interesting things that are going to happen in this space. I think hopefully we're the ones to do it, but yeah. We'll see.
Really cool. We actually, for onboarding purposes, we would do that. We would, set up basically a channel where people can pop in kind of whenever they need and kind of hang out. Everyone would kind of hang out on there. I would jokingly call it the breathing room because at times it would be a little awkward, right? But it's just figuring out like how do we connect and how do we communicate when we're remote, using these different technologies. To me, it's a fascinating time, and it's people like you that are paying attention and trying to innovate and figure out what works best, and what works for this team isn't going to work for that team. It's just a really cool space, and appreciate those of you that are trying to improve this workspace because it's certainly not at a mature level where everyone's going to run a Zoom meeting for everything. We got to figure that out, and that's a big undertaking. But I think it's a really cool time to be focusing on a product like this. So love it.
I think so. Just one last thing. I think one of the other things that keeps us going too is the responsibility that we feel for building a workplace collaboration tool. I mean, you spend most of your day working. You spend most of your day using these tools. If we can eliminate some of that frustration that you feel, scale that amongst everybody that's using this product, if we can make you more efficient, make things easier to use for you, delight you a little bit more, make your workday a little bit more pleasant, a little bit easier, a little bit lighter, and scale that amongst everybody that uses our product. I think we're making an impact on people, and then people will be ending their days a bit happier, hopefully, or at least a little less frustrated, or feeling a little more confident or comfortable in what they're doing, and so that kind of keeps us going.
I'm sure it's super influential at this point, with the shift of how people work, and it's important work that you're doing. So that's awesome. I would like to ask you, what does the next 12 months, what do you envision for Circles? I would love to hear kind of what the roadmap is and kind of what you foresee and some of the areas you want to focus on.
Yeah. So right now, a big focus of ours is Windows. So right now we're Mac OS only. We've got Windows in development. We built for Mac first because we use Mac computers, and we built this originally as a product for ourselves, and it kind of spun out from there. So we're building for Windows now. I think that'll be really important for us as you think about the machines that folks use at work, majority of which are Windows machines for a variety of reasons. And so if we want to impact more employees and more workers, then I think we need to be on both platforms. So that's a big priority for us. Beyond that, I think we're really excited to explore a bit more of these always on meetings and see what that's all about. We need to get a better sense for the networks that are being used. I think Zoom was something that we were using, and it was also incredibly popular at the time. Since then, things like Google Meet have jumped in popularity. Microsoft Teams is growing. Yeah. So, where are most of these meetings happening, and where can we deliver more value? That's an engineering effort there. And then what else can we be doing aside from just enhancing the meeting experience? There's a ton that we want to do on top of meetings as well. So, imagine you're in a meeting with, maybe not an all hands, but you're in a meeting with your team, and your team is 20 people, and you've got the Zoom grid, and you either got the Zoom grid so that you see all 20 people, or you see, paginated 9, page to 9 more, page to 9 more. And then there are a few folks that are really important to you in that meeting, and other folks that probably won't be speaking and are just participants. If you could quickly search for those folks, tap them, star them, add them to your doc of Circles, and then pay attention to those folks. Like, what are things that we can do? What are some actions? How can we help you filter, find people, send messages easier, do different things, make the Zoom experience or make the meeting experience better? So there's a lot we want to innovate on top of these platforms, and that'll take work. I know I'm moving in a bunch of different directions here, but these are the things that we're thinking about.
It's great. It's fantastic. So just kind of the last question here to kind of wrap things up is we've been asking, the founders that have been on this show, what's a technology, and this could be anything, it could be related, it could be totally separate. What's a technology that you're really excited about, that you see really transforming the way we work, the way we live, whatever that is? Just would love to hear from your perspective.
That's a great question. I wish I was more prepared for this. It's a fantastic question.
Anything that immediately kind of comes to mind that you've?
I'm so biased because I've been thinking about the video conferencing space for so long. Yeah. I do believe that there's a ton that can be done with real-time video that hasn't been done. I do believe that we're just scratching the surface with how folks interact right now, whether that's through video or other means. But I think video is very powerful. I think provides that real human connection. I think you and I have gotten to know each other a whole lot better through this than we would have on the phone, or certainly, more so than email. What we've seen through the pandemic is that, video brings people closer together, whether it's, these Zoom happy hours or Zoom meetings or what have you. And remote teams certainly feel a sense of camaraderie with their folks when they're on video chat with each other, more so than just speaking over Slack or otherwise. I think trying to find ways to use video when it makes sense in ways that don't cause fatigue and help connect folks in better ways, and using video when you need that fidelity and then downgrading to other experiences like audio or something else when it's less important, and then helping folks understand when to use certain methods of interactivity to be more effective and build those connections. I think there's a ton that'll still be done in the real-time communication space through a combination of video and other interactive tools. Biased because that's where I spend most of my time thinking, but I know it's not a new up-and-coming technology. It's not as sexy as something like crypto, but these days amongst what folks are talking about. But it's something that I truly believe there's still a ton of room for innovation on. And
I love it, and I love hearing that. That I think a lot of people feel like, oh, well, we got Zoom, so that's reached a level of maturity that's what it is. But I love knowing that there's people like you out there that are looking to innovate that and take the whole idea of real-time video and communication and take it to that next level, so we can get even closer to the real kind of connection and idea sharing that can go on, collaboration through these type of tools. So that's awesome. Well, Dave, this has been fantastic. We're just we're here at the end of the hour. I would just love for you to have a chance to share where people can see what you're up to, both the business, personally, where they can find you, where they can follow.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. circlesforzoom.com. Check us out. All the social networks, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn /social /Circles for Zoom. So check us out there. My name's Dave Schatz. If you have any questions for me, anyone who's watching this, reach out to me anytime. Dave at circlesforzoom.com. Just reach out. Happy to be supportive of this community. I'm obviously a huge fan of what you're doing, Tony. Huge fan of what you guys are doing at Insivia, and I want to give back to your community. So anything I can do to be helpful, reach out.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you, Dave, so much for your time here. This has been fantastic, and thanks for everyone tuning in. We will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.
Thanks again.